Hey everyone, it's Lisa Regina. I'm live at Heroic Episodes, and I'm also going live on Instagram right now and all our social medias for Heroic Episodes. And we do this every Thursday at 7. Every Thursday, we have a guest that has an inspirational story, a story that not only inspires us, but just makes us realize that anything is possible. And tonight we have a special guest. Let's just make sure we are live on everything. Barry Morgenstein is co hosting with me every Thursday now. Well, we hope every Thursday.
Cool.
uh,
As long as I don't get
and yeah.
fired.
And we're clicking the live here for Instagram, which is always the challenge. I think I got it now. Tonight, our guest truly
Special guest.
is a story. Yes, special guest. A story about determination, resilience, about defying the odds and rising to the moment. And that's Vince Papale. Vince, welcome.
Oh, thanks. Oh, you gave me chills saying all those things. I was just chasing a dream and taking on a dare. You know, somebody dared me to do it, and I said, "Well, okay, let's go."
Really?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the movie Invincible is about Vince Papale's life, and at that time, take us back. That was what was it? 1976, 78.
Sorry, guys.
Whoops.
That was me. Sorry.
Hey, yeah, 1976. Yeah, go ahead. You're doing pretty good so far, Lisa.
I'm doing pretty good.
Now, make sure the audience understands that we know each other, and your husband and everybody. I mean, you know, we're buds. So
we are. We're dear friends, and I value our friendship. And my husband John adores you and loves you. We love your family, and we have a lot of fun whenever we get together.
Yeah,
but you're still my hero. I mean, you could be my friend and my hero. You inspire me, and
thank you.
I've heard you speak numerous times, and it's just you give me the courage to go after my dreams. And as you know, I have a big one, Heroic Episodes, TV series, right? And your dream at the time, I mean, you said it was a dare. Bring us back to what happened. Who dared you, and how did that happen?
Well, you know, the dare actually started with me playing football because I was a track guy, and I went to college on a track scholarship, St. Joe's College. Back then it was a college, now it's a university. It was an all men's college actually. And when I was told by a whole bunch of other schools in the Philadelphia area that I wasn't a good enough athlete, and when you know it, I wound up at St. Joe's, and that became as their senior year, I was the athlete of the year, which was pretty cool. But you know, I went back to my alma mater in Delaware County, and right outside of Philadelphia, and right when I was graduating from college in '68, the Vietnam War was hot and heavy. And so, and being, you know, I'm a patriot, you know, I do salute the flag, and, you know, I stand up when they pledge of allegiance, or they say the national anthem.
Absolutely.
TV. I mean, that's what it is.
You're with patriots here. We're all like.
And so anyway, I was going to enlist in the Air Force or the Marines, and they promised me that I would be on their track team and I wouldn't have to go to Vietnam. I go, okay, this is a pretty good deal. And then when you know it, right at the last minute, when I'm about ready to make the decision as to where I wanted to go and what I was going to do, I got a call from my high school, my alma mater, Interboro High School in suburban Philly. And they said, we have what degree do you have? I said, marketing management, marketing, whatever. Oh, well, we have a business class. So we have a business opening at the high school, and we'd love to have you to come. So, but I still needed 4 credits. I had to get 4 courses. I had to get my temporary teaching certificate. So Jack Ramsey was the AD, and this is the Dr. Jack Ramsey, you know, from the Hall of Fame and the NBA. He says, look, I'll give you those 4 courses. He said, you've made us proud here. So he gave me the 4 courses as part of an extension of my scholarship. And I wound up and I became a teacher at my alma mater for 6 years. And then I was head track coach, assistant football coach. And
Nice.
decathlon sort of took, so when I'm coaching and I'm also training and trying to get into the Olympic trials in the decathlon. And if you saw the movie Invincible, I was playing in those rough touch leagues. That was true. And I did have a relationship that broke apart. And, that person walked out on me and left me in a very nasty note. And that was all true. And at any rate, I was sort of motivated. I had nowhere to go and all day to get there, sort of kind of an attitude. And I was taking a run and see if I could get into the Olympic trials. And I couldn't get into a meet where I would get certified. And I got frustrated because I was playing in those rough touch leagues. And here's where the dare came in. These guys, well, if you had any guts, you played for the Austin Knights in the semi-pro football. So I said, all right. So I found out who the coach was, gave him a call, and he says, we can't pay you. I said, I don't care. I said, I'll play for pizza. I'll play for beer, for Christ's sake.
For pizza.
So that basically literally what I did, no insurance. And I wound up, wouldn't you know it, I wound up leading the league in touchdowns and receptions. And a new league was being formed. It was called the World Football League. And a lot of, this is 1974, and a lot of guys from the NFL are now hijacking. They're going to go to the World League, and especially down here in Florida, where I'm in Jupiter now. The Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, Paul Warfield, they all went and they went to Memphis. Anyway, I did a free agent tryout for them, and out of 800 people, there was 2 people standing. One, a kid from Notre Dame, and me. Rudy wasn't one of them. And so I wound up playing there, and so the league folds, and I called my high school and I said, well, I'm ready to come back. And they said, well, we don't have a spot for you right now. So they put me on a leave of absence. And when Dick Vermeil comes into Philadelphia, and he just had he just won a Rose Bowl. He just beat Ohio State. And he gets the head coaching job at Interborough. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to have a free agent tryout. And here I am. There were 300 or 400 there, and there was one person left standing, and here I am.
And it was you. Yeah, oh my God. That's amazing.
That was the impetus for the movie.
What was your mindset like that day? Can you take us back to that day? Do you remember what you were thinking, or were you just?
There were a lot of different mindsets. One of them was, one of my mindsets was I had nothing to lose. And because I knew I had a job waiting for me when I got my leave of absence, they called me and they told me that there was going to be an opening coming up in the business department. What I did is I wound up going back down to the middle school, and I was teaching business math to 9th and 10th graders, because we were Interborough was coming up with a new school. So I had nothing to lose. That was it. But in reality, because I was a season order for 10 years, and I'd sit in the stands and I'd be so frustrated. I'd say, man, if I ever got a shot, I know I can do this, but I'm never going to get that shot. and when that this guy called me, and he acted sort of as my agent, and he said, they're having a free agent tryout and you've been invited to be there. And but I wasn't invited by Dick Vermeil. I was invited by Jimmy Murray, who was our general manager, and he knew me because he was a Villanova guy. And I did a lot of sort of. I was written up.
But in your heart, you wanted it, right? In your heart,
right.
I mean, that would have been
anyway. But Coach Vermeil didn't know when I went to the tryout. And after it was done, 15 minutes later, I was up there in the general manager's office signing a $21,000 contract.
Amazing story.
That's amazing.
What an inspiration.
Barry watched the movie again last night, as a matter of fact, right? You and Shelley watched Invincible?
Yeah, my wife and I did our homework.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. There she is.
I mean, it was so well done, so I'm sure you were.
Yeah, I mean, this is, it really is. This is DVD. Anybody that doesn't know, I mean, this is DVD.
DVDs, they're still around.
Yeah, so it's there. And I got to have the soundtrack here, it's been wild. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, how surreal was that when the movie first came out? Seeing your story on the big screen.
It was insane.
Yeah,
because I had never seen it. I saw it a couple times when we did some screenings, and they did a bunch of screenings in Philadelphia, and the producer, producers Mark Giardi and Gordon Gray, they already had done the movie Miracle, and there we are.
Yeah.
And you know
that shot. Yeah, that's great.
So they had a couple of screenings, but they're going. So you would understand this because you both are in the show business or in the trade. Right. You know, they needed to be sweetened. They didn't have the soundtrack. You know, there were a few things that needed to be done. A few of this. So I never really saw the finished product until we had back in 06. Yeah, it was right before Labor Day in 06, where we had at the Ziegfeld Theater in New York City, and that's where we had. Yeah, and then the next
who was playing you, Vince? Did you know who was going to play you right away? Did they call you one day?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because I worked with Mark. I mean, we worked hand in hand. If you go and you look up on YouTube, I have a lot of interviews up there with Mark Wahlberg. But I trained him. What we did is the movie was shot in 2005, and it was shot in Philadelphia. And ironically, Janet went to Northeast High School, and for 2 weeks prior to the 4th of July, we choreographed the movie because they were going to start shooting it right after the 4th of July. And I got to work with Mark an hour and a half every day and just work out with him on running routes and, this kind of thing, that kind of a thing, the kind of fundamentals that they'd be looking for. You catch the ball with your eyes and your hands, you keep your fingers together. I mean, all kinds of different funky stuff. And it was really great to work with him. And we became the best and closest to friends and, with our family. Yeah. I'm sure somewhere you've got a picture there of me with my family. We were very, very close to them.
Yes.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, there's Elizabeth, and there it is. And there's Vinny and Gabriella. Let's see, Vinny.
Janet.
Yeah, Janet.
Gabriella and Vinny.
Yeah,
they're so young. How cute.
You look pretty good, Vince. You could have played yourself.
Blonde haired, now he's a big boy. He's got a beard, So.
Yeah.
Great photo.
And they're both married.
Yeah, they're both married, and it's going to be Vinny's first with Mackenzie, the beautiful Mackenzie Kozlowski from Bucks County in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia area, and that 2 days from now, that's when they're going to have their first anniversary. And Gabriella's, I mean, there was no, because you guys know, you were there. There was no stress, right? Because they were married May 3rd, and on June 13th, Gabriella decides that she's going to get married, and here she is. She's 24 weeks into pregnancy, and she's going to have a little girl. So that's
so exciting. Wow.
Yeah. So
very exciting.
Life is pretty good right now.
So on the when you were on set, your family could visit. They must have loved it at that time. They had.
Oh yeah, every day wherever they were shooting a movie. First of all, I had Lisa. You would have loved this, because you sort of know the Philadelphia area. I had a pass that I put on my dashboard, and I could park anywhere except in front of a fire hydrant or in front of a loading zone and also a handicap. But I could park on a sidewalk if I wanted to. And so, anywhere around the city we would go. And when we get there, there'd be a big tent, 10 by 10, and there'd be 4 directors' chairs with each one of our names on the directors' chairs and 4 monitors with headsets.
Love it.
And in the headset would be what
that's awesome.
In there would be a pouch right there, and there would be the daily. You know what a daily is? So the daily is what the script is and everything else. And we would be watching this whole thing being shot with Erickson Core, who was our director. And it was the coolest thing in the world. But I rarely was there. I was right behind the cameras. They said
that's awesome. They involved your whole family. I love that. We have some comments coming up here. Kat Walsh, talented actress, Kat Walsh. She says, "Hey everyone." And Scott Purdy is also a wonderful actor. He says, "My wife and I met Vince at a fundraiser before the movie was made. He told us he had just found out they were making the movie about him, and it was rumored that Mark Wahlberg was going to play him. So we kind of found out early." Nice. That's really nice.
Well,
that's going back there.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I didn't really know anybody. They asked. I keep telling them. I said, "Well, it's Danny DeVito. It's always sunny in Philadelphia." Jersey man, whatever.
That's funny.
Mark was sort of handed to me, and Greg and Elizabeth. Elizabeth, there's a new movie now coming out right now with Elizabeth. You know, she shrinks and then there you go. There
Is that
picture,
Gabby?
that's Gabriella.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
And that scooter right there. Mark gave it to us after the shooting of the movie. He would drive that, and see, it's all eagle. It's eagle green, and he got it painted. And he got it painted eagle green. And he used to drive around the set all the time with my kids in the background. And look at Gabby; she's got that look like, "Hey, look at me, baby." You know. But that picture was
awesome.
taken. That was taken in Franklin Field when they did that. And that was in 05 when we shot it. And that's it. So Gabby was 12 and Vinny was 9.
Good
And,
memories.
I love the casting of your friends in the bar. I mean, I'm assuming that was pretty accurate and close to
Yeah, they were good. They were my real guys.
Yeah,
they did a great job, you know, and they were so much fun to be with. We were always out together. You know, after I would go and do what I would do afterwards. They would let me to go. The director would let me, and the producers would let me go up into the trailer and just watch the shoot for the day and see what was done. You know, and that was pretty cool. And then afterwards, we wind up some restaurant somewhere in Philadelphia, more often than not at the Saloon, where Vinny is right now. Yeah,
nice.
One of the best restaurants and Italian restaurants in Philadelphia. It's been around forever. So
that's still there, right? Oh my God.
Yeah, you know, Barry, it was just it was wild, man. I'll tell you what, every day was different.
I love this.
Yeah, that's cool. What we shot a week of the movie at the Cowboy Stadium, Texas Stadium, and Mark and Vinny says, "Hey, what do you say we do this?" And they went, and they got a football, and they're standing on a football at the 50-yard line.
Nice.
There, yeah, it didn't go over real big with people from Dallas, but anyway.
No.
Yeah. But Jerry Jones,
like it.
Cool. Yeah, so we spent a week. It was a 13-week shoot in 05. It was starting right after the 4th of July, and it was weird because it was a bicentennial year for us, which was really cool. And you know, we're coming up on the 250th anniversary, and coming up is going to be the 20th anniversary of the movie. I mean, it's insane.
Oh, that's so great.
It is.
It was yesterday.
So but it's a movie that you can see over and over, right, Barry? You can.
Yeah, that's one of those great. Yeah. And I love movies. I can watch movies. If it's a good movie, I can watch it 100 times, and that's one of those movies.
Thanks.
Inspirational. It's authentic. It's just such a great story. I mean,
they played around a little bit, but you know, not too much. And the thing is they captured the story, and there were a lot of layers in it. You know, it's not just a football story. You know, it's the story about the dream. Right. It's a love story. You know, I mean, there's so many things. It's not a love story from man to female or female to man. It was a love story with the guy that had a dream, and I'm saying in the third person here, with a guy that had a dream. And he just loved the city of Philadelphia sports, loved everything about Philadelphia. Was one of them, was one of the stands. And, you know, my father was a pig farmer. My mom and dad never got beyond 8th grade, right before World War II. You know, they grew up in the Great Depression. My mom, a great athlete. But the one thing that I wish they would have put in the story was the story about my mom and how strong she was. And she suffered from anxiety and depression. And I saw her being taken out of my house in a straitjacket. And she was institutionalized. So when I'm going through my puberty years, and I'm going through my high school years, you know, my mother's in and out of the mental hospitals. And my dad was working, the insurance was shot. My dad was working 2-3 jobs. He had a Sunoco station. You know, he pumped gas. He did what he had to do at Westinghouse. He drove a truck, whatever he had to do. And so I was really impacted by teachers and coaches. And that's one.
I was going to ask you, that's such a difficult thing to go through, to watch your mom suffer like that. And who was there for you?
Well, they were there.
Teachers.
Yeah. But when I came home, she was always there, you know, and I stayed at my house as long as I could after I went through one of my divorces. One of them. Oh my God. Anyway, so did I just say that?
But you know what my sister used to say, Vince, God rest my sister's soul. She used to say, you know what, Lisa, you keep doing it until you get it right. She was married a couple times, and you know, many years in between, but you know, the last one was the last one.
Well, as they always say, 3's a charm. And
Raise a
the one that
charm.
wore that jersey right behind me is the one that would be with me we'll be together 33 years coming this August.
Oh, wow.
August
Oh,
14th.
wow.
Yeah.
August 14th? Oh, wow. My
Yeah.
birthday is the 15th. My niece's birthday is the
There you
14th.
go.
That's awesome.
A lot of stuff
David
on-
Toombs. Hey,
All right.
folks.
Hey,
David
David.
Toombs says, hey, folks.
Hey,
David, we hope to see you. We'll be in Tennessee next week. I'm going to call you. And Angie says, hey, Barry, Lisa, Vince, tuned in from Instagram, Facebook. Thanks for sharing. Incredible memories, great photos. My family and I are going to watch it together. That's awesome. That's
Oh,
great.
cool. Yeah, it's on Disney Plus, and which
Nice.
is cool. And I've seen it. I've seen it many times. You know what I like, Barry? You know what I like? I like looking at the background of you
Right.
know. So and sometimes and I even found myself in the background once or twice. But you know, I look at other things. Then you know, I sort of know the movie. The soundtrack is just like epic.
Oh,
It's
I
so
agree.
good.
That's my era, so I love it.
Yeah, and I was playing in a golf tournament, a golf outing the other day, and I had the speakers going in the golf cart, and I put on. I said, "Yo," I said, "Dave, check this out." And he heard, "Oh my God!" He said, "This is great," because we love '70s music. I said, "That's our soundtrack." Can you believe that?
I love it. Yeah.
It started with Jim Croce. I Got a Name. Yep.
Right.
I
yeah.
love this picture with Janet. I love it.
Yeah, well, you know, that
Movie.
picture is at Mark Giardi's house, and Mark Giardi is all those movies are look at all those sports movies that are there, and all those
Wow.
movies were done by the guys that got our movie. What they got a hold in 2004, they got a hold of a spec script, and they took it to Disney, and on the spot, Disney bought it. They gave me a call and told me that I was going to be a Disney character. But look what's right in the middle, Invincible. Isn't that cool? That picture
I love it.
That picture was in Southern California just a few months before the big fires there. So we were lucky that Mark was able to get it. But Mark is an East Coast guy. He played baseball up at Rutgers, so pretty cool guy. But you know, he's one of the top sports producers of sports movies in the world. But look at all those movies, and then we're a part of it. Are you kidding me?
Miracle was one of the greatest. One of my favorites.
Yeah, Rudy and I are buddies. You know, I bust him all the time, tell me he was offsides, but yeah, it's great.
This is great. Mandy Smith. Hi, Mandy. She says, hey, Barry, Lisa, Vince. Vince was one of my favorite interviews. Amazing guy. Hugs and kisses, Mandy
Thank
Smith.
you.
She told me
Thank you
earlier
for that.
Vince, yeah.
Thank you.
And her husband Jack
awesome.
is a huge fan.
Jack.
He grew up in
That's
Philly.
so exciting. This is really cool. You're doing this first time. I mean, I've been, you know, as long as there've been podcasts, I've never done anything like this where people are coming in live.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
wow, this is
joining
like,
the party.
people really do watch these things, huh?
Yeah, they're watching, they're listening, they're engaged. So when it comes to, you know, inspiration and what keeps you going, I need some advice, because I have those days. Of course, John, my husband, is like, you know, my biggest fan, and he cheers me on. But you know, those days when you feel like, this is too tough.
Yeah.
What do you do to get your head in the right place, get your head in the game?
Well, sometimes it's hard for me to believe that I'm invincible, you know, because I'll start feeling sorry for myself, you know. But when I do my speaking engagement, and I do a PowerPoint, and I say, you know, what's your why? Why do you do what you do? And the first thing picture that pops up is the four of us: Janet, Gabriella, Vinny, and me. And that's my why.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm so motivated by them. And when I get a phone call from them, instead of me calling them, say, hey, Dad, just checking in, you know, and Lisa and Barry, every phone call that we have ends with 3 words: I love you. Every one. And it wasn't something that I ever heard in my house. It just wasn't spoken that way, you know. And now it's what it is. But you know, look, I just got done 8 weeks of proton therapy for prostate cancer, and I was feeling a little myself. And then you know, some people you know, got into my head and realized, I did actually. What I did is, and I was doing down in Del Rey as I was coming out of my treatment, there'd be maybe 10 or 15 people that would be in the lobby, and they were there for one reason: they all had cancer, and there was nobody that was crying. They were all smiling. They were all, you know, and there was this one great sign that as you walked in the door there at the Del Rey Radiation Center, and it just says, "Every day is a victory. Every day is a victory." So I say,
Awesome.
win the day, because every day is a victory. And I keep trying to say
Great
that.
attitude.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
great attitude.
Janet, I mean, like Janet with her and some of the stuff that she
Love
had,
Janet.
and her being a world-class gymnast and wearing USA in her jersey and all that stuff. She's not going to let me.
Yes.
She's not going to let me feel sorry for myself. She'll get on me like you can't even imagine. And
She's a motivator.
yeah,
I love her.
Yeah, she motivates me. She never stops. I mean, we have somebody just guessing right now at our house right now that's going through a tough time. And she said, "You mind if I stop over?" She came over, and there they are. And that's Janet, and she loves playing. She loves being Cupid, and she loves to dance. Yeah, she can dance.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Angie says, "Beautiful. God bless you and your family, Vince."
Well, thank you.
She's going to carry that with her in her heart and win the day, because every day is a victory. Amen. See that? Kat Walsh. I love Janet. Kat met you and Janet at the fundraiser as well, when you met Mary. Yeah.
Well,
so my nonprofit, as you know, Vince, is all about storytelling, using writing to heal. The series that I've been developing, Heroic Episodes, is about telling these inspiring stories that move us. Why do you think it's so important to have your story told? Like, not just for you, but for others. Do you think storytelling is, a powerful tool, and why?
So, yeah, because it's real. And that's it. I could read a book. I'm reading a great novel right now, a guy, Paul Datchy, one of my favorite writers. And what he's writing about seems so real to me, but this is real. What happened to me is real. What happened with Janet? She should have been in the Olympics, but she blew her knee out. She was injured during the Olympics with Kathy Rigby and all them. And, and never feeling sorry for herself. And so, more than anything, I like other people's stories, and I love reading it and hearing about that. And most anything, it's about those dreams, and overcoming the dreams, or I'm overcoming the odds to have that impossible dream come true. And I was motivated by the greatest people in the world. And they were teachers and coaches, where you could talk to them. They were Mister, and there was respect for it. And and that's my background. I'm a half Italian, and I'm half English, and my grandparents worked hard.
I think those
My grandfather was a pig farmer, for crying out loud, right by the Philadelphia airport. So there it is. That's me. That's where I come from.
Vince, I think you would agree too, because I get this
I
a
love,
lot.
but
too,
that's.
I'm sorry, Lisa. I think you would agree that I think a part of it too is when you're doing what you're doing in the beginning, you're going to get a lot of negativity. And one advice I give a lot of young people, because I was told, no, you shouldn't be a photographer. There's too many photographers. It's too hard to do. And I ignored it. And I had a lot of naysayers and I had a lot of negativity. I'm sure you could tell the same story, that people said, oh, this is not going to happen for you. But
we're freezing up a little bit.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you can hear me, but that kind of like you ignore those things. You ignore the negativity, and you move on, and you do what you want to do.
Well, you just defined one of my slides, because what I put up, and when I'm talking about the impossible dream and what you're going to hear from people, you can't do it. It's never been done before. Right. You're old. You're too old.
Right.
30 years old. You didn't play college football. What's on your resume? You got this, you got that. But I'll tell you that, what it all comes down to? It's insecurity that's fueled by jealousy.
I absolutely agree.
And our kids went through it. My Gabby and Vinny went through it when they got into high school. When the movie was coming out, Vinny's a great athlete. He could be in the Olympic Games playing for Italy in the flag football. And Gabriella was a great athlete, and and what she did, and they rose to the top in everything they ever participated in. And we lost our girl.
I guess I'm taking over the show.
So there we go. But we rose to the top, and they rose to the top, and people, oh, it's only because your old man played for the Eagles, or he's got a movie, Invincible, and blah 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 blah.
Right. Yeah, I just think that it's such an important thing to remind young people, because young people, you get that so much, is like, well, you can't do this, like you just said. It's like, so I love telling young people that ignore the negativity.
I'm back.
Welcome back. We missed you.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It dropped out. Clear on my end. Love the advice.
Yeah, so
encouragement from
like I
all.
was saying there while you were off, one of the slides, where people were the naysayers, and a lot of us feel
Yes.
Right.
jealousy.
Oh
Mhm.
my God, yeah.
So
I
Yeah.
true.
remember when I did my first film, Kenny, it was a short film about my friend who was born with a very rare skin disease, ichthyosis. And when I moved to New York City, my dream was to, make films, act, do all the creative performance arts. And I remember people saying to me, you can't do that. You never made a film before. And I did it with like $5,000 and a lot of people that had passion, and we made it happen, and it raised awareness for his disease. It was amazing.
I bet.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you can't listen to the naysayers or the negativity. No doubt.
Well, you don't think Sylvester Stallone, who had a tremendous influence on my life, you don't think
Yes.
Sylvester Stallone heard that, with the budget that he was working with
Right.
to put that movie Rocky together?
They wanted somebody else to play the role. They said, "We'll take
Yeah,
the story, but we want somebody else." He said, "Absolutely not. It's my story. I'm playing it."
that's it.
So good for him.
Exactly. That now Rocky came out in, I'm
76.
trying to think, 70, yeah, was it 76?
02.
I think so.
02. Yep. And I'll tell you why I know
Here we
it's
go.
02.
That's a good photo.
There's me.
Where
Yeah.
was this, Vince? I
That
love
is-
that shot.
That's in the green room of the art museum at the top of the art museum steps, where I was the MC for the premiere of Creed, the movie
Oh,
Creed.
nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a classic photo. I love
And
it.
I got invited to be that, and I was always called the real life Rocky. And the reason I know it's 2002 because I got a call from NFL Films saying we'd like to do a feature about you on Monday Night Football because it's the 25th anniversary of Rocky, the movie Rocky, and everybody calls you the real life Rocky, right? So there you
Nice.
were, and that was the lead into the movie getting started, and I had heard, the word on the street. I had heard that there might have been some miscommunication between me and Sylvester Stallone for whatever reason. But when I was, and I hadn't seen him live until how many years later, and there we are, and I'm being introduced in the green room, and he's there signing, he's signing all the posters for the movie Creed, and he looks up and he points at me and he said, "That's you," and he said like this, came like that, gave me a big hug, and here we are. We're
Nice.
friends. There it is.
That's
So
amazing.
I love that.
yeah,
That is great.
forever. But thank you, Rocky. But it's so funny because when I had made the team back in 76, 77, a lot of the sports writers were saying, "Hey, have you seen Rocky? You got to see Rocky. That's your story." And
Right.
these sports writers in Philadelphia. One was in particular Jack McCaffrey. I can't believe I remembered his name, but Jack McCaffrey for the Delaware County Daily Times or Delaware County. And he said, "You got to see Rocky." So I went and saw Rocky, and I said, "Wow, that's me." And then when how many years, 20 years later, I get 25 years later, I get the call, and there you go.
I love it.
Yeah,
What a story.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the way he overcame so many obstacles, like you were saying, Barry. They wanted someone else to
yeah.
play it, and yeah.
His brother's not doing too shabby either, right now.
Oh, Frank Stallone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Frank.
And this is a great shot. I love this one.
Yeah, that's the premiere at the Ziegfeld Theater, and that's of course the guy who had allowed me to have my dream come true. That's Coach Dick Vermeil.
Oh wow,
Is that great or what?
that is
That's
amazing.
great.
I thought Greg Kinnear was so great in the
Oh,
film.
he was phenomenal. Hey Barry, you know what he did? He went down to Kansas City and he spent 3 days in Kansas City just interviewing the players and just hanging around Coach Vermeil to catch all his mannerisms. And when I went to Franklin Field for the first time, and they had the wardrobe truck that was there, or the makeup truck, and a guy walks out and he's dressed like Dick Vermeil. I thought it was Coach Vermeil, and it was Greg Kinnear. And Greg,
That's great. Wow.
and Greg, he and Mark they had hair weavings, they're always scratching their head. It was so
Mandy Smith says, great pick. Pam Arnell, how you doing, Pam? She says, hi, everyone. Good seeing y'all. And Joseph Murphy, he's an athlete. I've known Joe Murphy a long time. He says, I love the positive energy in your podcast. That's right. We love inspirational
Yeah.
stories.
Thank you. Well, you're an inspiration, and everybody's an inspiration some way, somehow. I mean, Janet's an inspiration to me right now.
She is.
When I see
She
her.
is. She has a story that I think would be an amazing film, right?
Well, we tried we tried it. It didn't work, but we did write a book, and
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay.
we did write a book. It's all about potential, and both of us, we reached the top level of where we could be in our sport. And I didn't get to the Super Bowl, and Janet didn't get to the Olympics, but nobody's going to call us a loser. And yeah, that's how you can get a hold of me. We just rebuilt my website, so that's all
It
good.
looks great. I was checking it out.
Yeah, thank you.
VincePapale.com if anyone wants to get a hold of you. And of course, you're doing a lot of speaking engagements. I know you're busy, and I'm glad you made time for us. What do you have coming up? Anything coming up?
Let's see. Aside from the baby shower for
Gabby.
June 6th, and go to Copenhagen to see Vinny compete in it's just a competition. He's getting warmed up for the World Game, which will be in Dusseldorf. I do have I'm doing a lot of stuff still for charity. I'm with the veterans. And I'm really with one of the great groups that takes care of the veterans' teeth, because it's almost impossible to get anything done when they try to get into the VA.
Right.
So it's Wounded Veterans Relief Organization. And my buddy used to fly Apaches, and that's the guy that got me to do that. So we're doing that instead of red, white, blue. We're doing that.
Very cool.
I'm doing whatever I do, but let's see. I'm heading to where am I going to be heading? Oh, I'm heading to Reno, Nevada, at the end of the month. And then I just did a booking, and I'm going to be heading out to Savannah, Georgia. And so I got a couple of nice speaking engagements coming up, and I do this, I do that. I still sign a lot of autographs. I get a ton of mail still.
Your energy is like off the hook. Like we want to bottle Vince Papale's energy.
So,
if Vince Papale were an energy drink.
Oh, Jesus, Lisa. I mean, this is so unfrickin' real. I'm looking at a hat right now that has Invincible with our Invincible logo. That's right behind the camera here, right behind the computer, and it still blows my mind that this movie came out. That Mark Wahlberg and Disney and the whole deal, the whole connection, and here I am, and I'm at places. I was actually going to a place the other day. That's Denny Franks. God bless you, Dennis. I love you so much. I lost Dennis 4 years ago, but that's us on set, and that's the uniform I was saying that I wore for my 2 seconds of fame when I had a cameo in the movie when Mark was catching a pass in training camp and I was slapping my hands. So Gabrielle busted my chops and says, "Yeah, that's his 2 seconds of fame." So
yeah. That's great. Love it.
Yeah, that's the set.
Shelley's on. She says, great energy. That's Barry's wife, Shelley. She's beautiful. We love Shelley. And Joe Murphy is popping up again here to tell you, Vince. He said that I think he met you at Top Golf in Morristown with Joe Murphy's girls basketball team a couple years ago. Good to see you.
Right. Well, that's what brought me down here. It wasn't Top Golf, but I remember Top Golf. Yeah, it was great. But I got down here because they asked me to be the guest speaker for what's called COPS Cops, and it was Golf for Cops, and the COPS means Concerns of Police Survivors for the Fallen and their family. And I got down here, and Janet, she lived in Boynton when I met her in '92, and we always, I mean, we lived in Philadelphia and in Cherry Hill, whatever, but we always wanted to come down here, and when came down for a golf tournament, and she's a realtor, and she says, "Let's look what we can find." And here we found our little haven.
It's beautiful. Yeah, we love it there. It's beautiful.
Casa Papale.
Vince, I want to ask you one thing about the movie too that I love. A part that I loved in the movie, I want to see if it was actually based on truth. Is when the fellow, your fellow player in your room taught you about the hands.
Yeah, that was true.
I thought that was such a cool little story.
Yeah, it's called Read the Knuckles. You got to read the Knuckles. He said he was tired. It was Denny Franks.
Right.
And he was tired of me getting blasting. He says, all you got to do is like your body language. You hear it all the time right now. It's called situational awareness.
Okay.
Right? I mean, we hear that term all the time. And
Right.
in our game, you have to have the audible. The audible is you got to be able to change. If what you're gearing for and what you're going after, and it's not going to happen, you better have your plan B, C, D, E, F, and G. And that's the way it is. So then that's what that's about. And I end my speeches showing the last scene in the movie where we call the audible, where the guys are over top of me and I'm reading, and I'm reading their knuckles. I see they're like that, so it's like they want to charge. They're talking all kinds of trash about my mother, about my sister, and what they're going to do and drive me into the end zone. Then all
Oh,
of a
wow.
sudden, I see the body language, and I read their body language. Their weight's gone back, and I'm saying, "Whoa, they're not charging." But what they're going to do is they're just going to they're not coming. So I called what was called a check zero. A body language meant, hey, I'm going, guys. I'm going after the punt. I'm not going to let this guy just get 25 or 30 yards on us. And they slid over to the right side, and they covered me, and all the extra tips coming from the two guys of the Giants, it was like so funny. And I blasted them, and as they say, the rest is history.
I love that.
That's amazing.
That was just so fascinating. Thanks.
Yeah, that was a thing, but that was a key part of it. It's like life. My friend, he wrote a book, Life is an Audible. I don't get all this stuff because I'm smart. Win the Day. It's another buddy of mine who wrote a book called Win the Day. Jimmy Murray book.
What is the one that you always say about being on the sidelines?
Oh yeah. Let's see. Oh my God, it's something about. Oh yeah, you can't. Something about you can't. Winners don't win on the sidelines. You got to get into the game. Oh, it's never too late to get into the game. Get out of the sidelines. That's what it is. It's never too late.
I love
And then,
that.
I'll tell you, can I give you my favorite quote given to me by my high school coach and the guy that convinced me to come out to track and change my whole life because I wound up with a track scholarship. And Coach George Corner, when I was going to him asking for some advice because I'd already made a decision, but I need somebody to back it up, and I knew Coach would do it. And he said, let me give you this quote, and it goes like this: happy are those who dream dreams and are willing to pay the price to make their dreams come true. And the key question there, he said, Vinny, he says, are you ready? Are you ready to pay the price? He said, they're going to come at you hard. And they did. And but just kept smiling, and the people in the stands were all my former students, guys I played rough touch with, all the guys from Westinghouse, the guys I played, all of a sudden, every week, every preseason game, I would do something. I'd get a touchdown, or I'd make a big play, and before you know it, the whole stands, and every time I catch a pass, it was like you thought I caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. And they motivated me. And, I couldn't wait to get out onto the field. I would just catch a pass in pregame and pre-practice warmups. And they, yeah, Vinny, let's go, Vinny. And we all hung out at the same, the local bars. And, it's what it was. It was just so great. And training camp was just only 5 or 6 miles from my house. So it was perfect.
I love the camaraderie. Just like with military, there's camaraderie with athletes, that camaraderie. And I think that's why you and my husband, John, really hit it off when you first met, because you had,
he's one of us too, I mean, he's there. I mean, he's part of the fraternity, and it's a pretty cool, with the Giants. I mean, but he was on the wrong side of the ball. That's the problem. Hey, John, I love you. You know that. Yeah, there he is. That's my man. That was us on set.
That's a great shot.
Ready to go. That's
number
Mark.
83.
Isn't that cool? They had 5 doubles, and one of them would wear a helmet because he ran like me, and they had a helmet that had hair coming out of the back of the helmet. Yeah, it wasn't cool for ponytails for guys back then, but that's my guy, Mark. Isn't that great? That's at Franklin Field. You can see
great.
You can see the University of Pennsylvania.
Right here.
That's the scoreboard of University of Pennsylvania, where they have the pen relays, and where Janet was the gymnastics coach there.
Awesome.
Yep. Nice. What a great photo.
So fun. Yep.
For anyone that's watching tonight, Vince, we have a lot of people on here making beautiful comments and saying hi to you and Janet. And for anyone watching that might be going through a hard time, do you want to send them a message or say something to them, because we all go through rough times.
Yeah, we all do, and I'm gonna just, we've already said it, and I could go, and if you can't sort of figure it out, I do have a pretty positive attitude, but it's win the day, just get through today. There's a lot of stuff going on, and don't believe everything that you hear around you. Be smart, make sure you make the right decisions, make sure that you get all those audibles in life, and that situational awareness. I talk about that a lot, and just know what's surrounding you, and be ready to make that move. And like I said, when I walked in there, every day is a victory. Every day is a victory. And I'm a two cancer survivor. I had colon cancer in '01. And, I beat that, and I represented Jefferson Hospital that did that. But, I was lucky I caught it in time, and I caught the prostate in time. And, I just turned 80. I can't even believe that.
I can't believe it.
I've got a 32-year-old daughter and a 29-year-old son. I was 50 when Vinny was born. Everybody thought my kids were my grandchildren. I said, yo, you look like you're staying here. You know what I'm saying?
You look great. You look awesome. You and Janet looks amazing. You guys look great.
She's not going to let me get old. She'll trade me in for a couple 40-year-olds. So.
Barry, any last thoughts before we wrap out tonight?
This is so much fun.
I know.
Just Vince, I'd say you're an inspiration to young people. You're an inspiration to old folks like me too. So really appreciate you.
I try to be, I try to be positive, and I surrounded myself with some really great people, and I've seen people and how they handle. And here's another great saying, and it was given to me by Coach Vermeil, and I think we need a little bit more of this right now, because there's a division, there's a split somewhere, and we got to come back together. And I said to Coach, I said, I said, people are coming up to me, and it's crazy, asking photographs. He said, you better meet every person you meet as if they're the most important person you've ever met in your life. And that came from Florence Nightingale. And my kids, Gabby and Vinny, and and they're the same way. And that's why I try to be, and I try to, and when I see people be, here's a really great example, and then I'll let you go. But I picked up Janet at the airport the other day. She was there visiting her mom. And I picked her up at the airport the other day, and I was just ready to get out of the car. And Janet had a really big bag. It was pretty heavy. And one of the young men, he was in his 20s, was right there on the curb. He went and says, here, let me help you. And he went and he grabbed and he took both bags and put them in there. A young kid, about 23 to 25 years old. You know what I did? I walked up and hugged him.
Oh, wow.
He let me, but it was such a great, for me, it was like, you know what? Our kids, they have it, just don't be affected at, social media. Just
right. No, you're right.
You're right. And that's why we do this every Thursday, because we bring on someone like you that has an incredible positive story that inspires us, because there's a lot of static and a lot of garbage, and you can't let it into your personal space. You can't let it into your head. And I'm reading these comments. Everybody just loves the positivity. Great interview. Vince is one of the most positive, wonderful people. Mandy Smith. I agree, Mandy. Yes, he is. I love him. And we're so happy he's here with us. And Angie, again, this is incredible and encouraging, positive. So I think, it's like, moths are attracted to light, right? So people are attracted to light, and you have a light, Vince, and that's and I'm really grateful to say that you're my friend, and Janet and Gabriella and Vinny. We love your family. We love spending time with you, and we're going to see you soon, because we'll be in Florida soon, John and I.
That's pretty cool. Well, our relationship goes beyond friendship. It goes to family. Your family, was that?
Yes.
And we love you for that. And Barry, you're now part of the family. So let's go, man.
Yeah, Barry, you and Shelley protect.
I'm an amateur photographer, but I used to get some pretty good shots.
I'd love to see some of the photos you took.
Oh, I have to go through it, because when we were moving out of Cherry Hill, I had everything put on discs, so I got to find them somewhere.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to, when we come visit Lisa and John, we'll hang out.
We got to get together. What our favorite place is, Stuart. So
yes. We will. We definitely will. And your wife, Shelley, is saying, protect your peace. That's a beautiful way to say it, Shelley. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Vince, my wife, she's pretty great.
Yes. Vince, thanks for being here. You're one of the inspirations in my life, and you keep me going. And, of course, my husband, John, but you're positive and you look awesome, and God bless you. And I'm going to see you soon. And everyone is just saying beautiful things here. We had a great night. Thanks for being here. And thanks to everyone that engaged and enjoyed this night. We'll see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. right here live at Heroic Episodes. And Barry Morgenstein and I will bring you another positive, inspirational guest and story. So we'll see you next week. God bless.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Barry.
You're the best. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Hang on, guys.
We're hanging.